Welcome to the Neutral Zone on Q30 Sports. I'm Patrick Flatley. This is Ryan Flaherty, and we're here to talk some men's hockey to kick off the season. Ryan, I'll start with you. What is the overall thoughts from the weekend for the women's hockey team?
So overall, I thought this was a really positive weekend for the women's hockey team. Last year, they were 0-3 against Providence and Maine. This year, they come out of the gate, play 4 games, and they're 2-1-1. They're 2-1-1, but they had a real chance to win all 4 of those games. You'll get the first game against Providence. They go at Providence, they win that game, come home. Saturday, didn't close out the game, lost 3-2. A lot of little things went wrong, but had a real chance to win that game. They go to Maine, they get a good win in overtime, and then they tie against a pretty good Maine team. So right now, I'm very high on this team. I think, last year we both watched a lot of the games. They played a lot of close games, but they couldn't finish, and that, leads you to the 0-3 marks against those teams, and this year they're 2-1-1, so I think overall it was a great weekend.
What is the most important aspect of this team coming into the season?
So I think the most important and right now the most impressive has been the freshman class. Last year they lose an incredible senior class, a senior class that accounted for almost 35% of their scoring. And when you lose a class like that, it's players that are impossible to replace, but they brought in a freshman class, Alexa Hoskin, Sadie Peart, 2 players who just got named Rookie of the Week. And really, they've been the catalyst. These freshmen on the women's hockey team have been so good that they're really replacing the senior class. Sadie Peart scored 2 goals at Maine, 1 in overtime to get the game winner. Alexa Hoskin scored a goal against Providence, goal and assist on the weekend. They're starting to play a more aggressive style, and these freshmen have been really impressive at the media days and at the pressers. They've talked a lot about Kate Riley, a defenseman who's been in the building in the morning, ready to work. Abby Ives and the captains have been talking about how impressed they've been with the freshmen. They're willing to ask questions, ready to listen, and I think they've been the difference so far, and they're the most important reason why they're 2-1-1.
You mentioned a couple of the new freshmen being a more important role into this season, but what is the biggest difference from last year's team to this year's team, would you say?
So I think the biggest difference has been the power play. Last year, we're only 4 games in, so it's hard to tell whether it's just a short sample or if this is something that's going to extrapolate towards the full season. But last year, they only scored 13 goals on the power play with that senior class, with a really strong top line, a strong first power play unit. And this year, they've already scored 4 goals in just 4 games, 4 goals on 18 attempts. Right around 22%. Last year they were around 12%. So right now it's the power play and the special teams that I've noticed. Cass Turner's mentioned playing a more aggressive style of play, which I think has really been working. Defensively, they're starting to jump up into the play. I just think overall the attacking, the power play, the aggressiveness has really been the difference, and it's something that I think is going to be key to this team moving forward.
And a lot of bright spots on this team, but overall, where do you see them finishing in the ECAC?
So I think they can compete with anyone in the ECAC, but this is a very, very tough conference. There's 3 teams in the top 10, Cornell, Clarkson, Princeton. I think if they continue to play the aggressive style, play the way they want to, and not make mistakes, they're going to be a team that can compete. They played a lot of those close games last year. They couldn't win. I think they're going to get some more wins in those close games, but I think at the end of the day, the better teams are going to come out on top, especially with teams that are ranked in the top 10 nationally. So I think we're looking at 4th, 5th in the conference, and that's not necessarily an indictment of where the program is. I just think the ECAC is such a strong conference that they can compete, but I think at the end of the day, the better teams are going to be the better teams, and they're going to finish around 4th, 5th in the conference.
We saw how tough the conference was last year. After the break, me and Ryan are going to talk some men's hockey. We'll see you soon.
Just finding consistency, but I think that will come with the season. There's not time now to be oh wait, we can wait, but just sometimes consistency comes with people getting more comfortable with their roles and having a better understanding of what our culture is all about and how we function here.
And we have Sacred Heart and then into conference play. I think we can fix the things that were mistakes today.
we had a lot of kids play great. We had some kids that really struggled, and we got to find a way to be a little more consistent as the season goes on. But it's game one, and we'll take the win, and we move on.
So that's definitely one thing we got to fix for tomorrow is if we get up on a lead, just step on their throats and keep, moving forward.
Welcome back to Neutral Zone. Ryan Flaherty, Pat Flatley here. So we talked women's hockey. Now let's talk some men's hockey. An impressive start to the season. A couple of wins against AIC. Peter Delibertori, an NHL draft pick already of the Vegas Golden Knights, stepping into a bigger role this year. Pat, what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, Vegas drafted this guy for his offense, and it's no surprise. One of the biggest things I'm going to be looking for this season is going to be how Delibertori steps into the bigger role. They had Prisky last year. He 8 minutes, he quarterbacked the power play, offensive catalyst from the start on the back end. But now he's gone, and a lot of that depth on defense is gone too. He's offensive-minded. I said it before. When he goes, he's going. He did that last year. They had the opportunity last year because he was kind of under the radar on other teams from the depth that he had, that the defense had. But he's paired with Meta this year, a sophomore. He's going to have to stay back a little bit more. He's going to have to be more of that team player, less of that offensive player. I'm sure Rand Pecknell and the coaching staff is going to be stressing that this year. On the power play, we saw him quarterback the power play in the game versus Brock, playing catch with Bon Giovanni on the point, opened up a lane for him to shoot the one-timer in. And power play goal at home in the home opener against AIC from the point. He has to stay out of the box, though. That's one of the biggest things. He had 15 penalties last year, 1 penalty already this year. If you're in that role, if you're that big of a player, you have to cut down the penalties. You have to be on the ice for your team, and expect a big year out of Peter Delibertori.
All right, so a big year coming from Peter Delibertori, says Pat. Now let's talk a surprise player of the year. Who do you think is going to make an impact on this team that maybe isn't necessarily the best so-called player?
Yeah, my surprise player is actually William Falstrom. He had a sneaky 21 points last year, 8 goals, 3 of them were game-winning goals. He proves he can play in big moments. We saw it in the Brock game. He was on the ice in the last minute, tipped a Metza shot in to force OT for the Bobcats. One of the biggest underrated moments last year for the team was that line of Martin, Falstrom, and Whalen. He's back with Whalen this year. The chemistry's there. We saw it all year last year with the chemistry. He's older, more experienced now, more comfortable on the team, more comfortable with this line mate of Whalen, and expect a big year out of William Falstrom.
So you think he'll make a big jump in year 2? Let's talk about some other players. There's a lot of inexperience on this team. There's 22 underclassmen, 11 freshmen, 11 sophomores, I believe only 7 upperclassmen. So this team has a lot of youth. How do you think they're going to do adjusting to college hockey? And then for the sophomores, how are they going to make a big jump in year 2?
Yeah, it's no secret that this team's young. Rand Pecknell said it after the Brock game that they look young, they looked inexperienced, but that's something that's going to come with time. Lucky for them, they have a great system, a great coach, a great culture to buy into with Rand Pecknell and this QU team. But luckily, some of the big names on this team are from that underclassmen group in Bon Giovanni, Falstrom, DeYoung, Delibertori, to name a few. Desi Burgard's going to have to step up. They got good leadership under a new captain of Nick Germain. That's not going to be an issue all year. We saw it in the Brock game when Germain got hit from behind. Desi Burkhardt was the one that came in, defended his captain, and that's what you like to see on a team, defending their guys, stepping up for their captain. And it's a tight group, and they're going to have to grow together.
Do you think, you mentioned growing together, do you think that's going to be a problem down the line, in the ECAC, or are they going to kind of gel, and by that point it won't really be an issue?
I think it could be at the start, but luckily we have a couple out-of-conference games to, kind of get that out of the way. Going into the ECAC, I think Cornell, Clarkson, QU is how it's going to finish. I think it's a 3-dog race. It's a tough conference, just like the women's team when we were talking about it. There's a lot of talent, a lot of good teams in there. Cornell was ranked 5, Clarkson was ranked 10, QU ranked 9 out of the gate for the USHO poll, and like I said, tough conference. Where do you think they're going to finish for?
It's a good question. I think, last year they win the Cleary Cup. I think they had a lot of talent last year. I'm worried about defensively.
Mm-hmm.
I think Delibertori is going to be great. He's going to take over that Chase Prisky spot on the power play, but there's a lot of young, a lot of inexperience there, and I do think, they'll work that out in the out-of-conference games, but when you lose guys like Brogan Rafferty and Chase Prisky and Fortunato,
Mm-hmm.
you just like the women's team, you just don't replace those players. So I think we're going to see some growing pains. I think that we might not be heading towards another Cleary Cup this year, but I do think, like you said, this is a 3-horse race.
Yep.
And I think, right now they're 8, 9 in the polls, so they're, looked upon nationally as just about as good as anyone in the ECAC, and I think that's where they stand. So I would say probably second. You have them probably behind Cornell. I think Cornell is going to be a very, very good hockey team this year. I think Clarkson's a team that can play with, but they'll be somewhere in the second or third.
Yeah, defense is definitely going to be, the back end itself is definitely going to be the biggest hole for this team.
Yeah, biggest
I'd say.
question.
Like I said, a lot of depth was gone. It's basically Chuksta, Deliberatory leading the pack, 3 new freshmen in the lineup. And if Petrozelli's on, I think this team could make a little bit of a run here. That's another question mark. If he's on, they're good. They need him to be good. They need him to be on. And that's men's hockey.
That's men's hockey. All right, and that was Neutral Zone. Ryan Flaherty alongside Pat Flatley here. Hope you enjoyed. We'll be back next week.